Okay, I'd like to call this meeting for Easthampton City Planning Board for March 12th. And anybody here from the public that wants to speak about anything that's not on the agenda?
Well, can I speak about something?
No, you can't in the public.
Yeah, I'd like to, I think we have to add a couple of things to our bylaws, but as far as the planning board is concerned, after the experience that I've been experiencing the last 2 days, which I didn't even know existed on paper, I'm not going to say the word tampering. I'm going to say, what am I looking for?
You're starting trouble is what you're doing.
I'm not starting trouble.
Okay.
But it's when an applicant contacts a planning board member. I can't remember what that was. It's not tampering. That's not the wrong. That's the wrong word. Inappropriate contact. There's a name for that. You know that.
Ex parte.
Right. We have to put that into our bylaws somehow. But I was never even aware of that. Okay. And I've been on board for this happened back 3 years ago. And the second thing I want to try to do, or I'd like to do, you guys can discuss it. When we have a walkthrough, I know you guys haven't experienced a walkthrough, right? No, you probably have.
Witnessed them, but I haven't on the ZBA board member yet.
When you do a walkthrough, you go through a walkthrough, and you go through it, and you got 20, 30 people, and you get the planning boards out there, and you got all the people, all the residents are out there. Nothing wrong with a walkthrough. But what happens in a walkthrough, a lot of people can say things to you without you even realizing it. It's almost like an illicit contact, or somebody can say something off the cuff to you, and then you're forced to admit that you heard something from somebody without even trying to hear it. So all I'm trying to say is, it's the same thing as us trying to conduct a meeting right in the center of everybody out on the floor. Instead of having, upstairs, instead of having a meeting where we're sitting in the front, we're trying to conduct it from the inside, and everybody's surrounding us, that type of thing. So we got to do it. Well, you can make up the rules you want. But I just think when we go to a walkthrough, the board can be with the board, and anybody that wants to be with the board or wants to know what's going on can be not necessarily in back of the board, but at least separated. So nothing can be said to anybody. I mean, that's how bad this kind of thing is.
Can I respond in a way just to explain how when the ZBA did Parsons recently and there was a site visit and how they sort of set it up? It was listed as an open meeting, so they filed it under open meeting law, and they very specifically said this is an opportunity for the board to ask questions of the applicant. The public is not allowed to speak. We're not going to have dialogues with the public. They made it clear at the meeting before the site visit in the public forum that this is how they were holding their meeting, and that this was an opportunity for the board to ask questions of the applicant directly, and the dialogue was to happen between the applicant and the board. So I don't know if you necessarily need to put it in the rules and regulations, but if you want to make it clear before a site visit that this is how the site visit will be conducted or held, that might be a way to sort of address some of your concerns.
Well, I know when we were up there doing part of this review, we must have had at least, trying to think back, it's just kind of typical, I must have had at least 20 or 30 people. And the wood was out there, everybody just kind of separated and all kind of milling around, and then everybody thought, well, I don't want it here, I don't want it there, this shouldn't be here, and that shouldn't be there, they're putting the barn over there, and all this kind of stuff was going on at the time.
There was no rhyme or reason.
It wasn't really organized.
Well, the ZBA held a very organized meeting. They made it very clear.
Maybe I should say that.
But you can, the thing is, you can either have, you can have a site visit where there's no, basically, transfer of information at all other than visiting, and you don't have to notice that as a public meeting. Or you can err on the side of caution, post a notice for it, make it a public meeting, open meeting law, and go and do it, and then it's just a matter of how you're going to organize it and control it. And I think 9 times out of 10, you do that, and it's still just going to be the applicant there, maybe in a butter. It's not going to be like a Parsons kind of project where there's 50 people. I was at the walkthrough for Stop and Shop at the Courtney's property, and Jason Duda had announced at the beginning of the walkthrough that it was a function for the planning board, and that the public was not permitted to interact or ask any questions of any kind.
Yeah, I was at that walkthrough also, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's the question.
That's not what happened. Well, he can say it, but who's enforcing it?
Yeah.
I was also under the impression that when the planning board decides that they're going to have a walkthrough, it can be held with just the planning board members also, to get their input without public input. This is, when you have a walkthrough, it's planning board walking through, or ZBA, or whatever. If you want the public to be with you, like Jessica said, announce it that way. But I was under the impression when the planning board or any board holds a walkthrough, it's strictly that board. They don't have to have the public there.
But
Just the persons
Depends what
that...
you're doing.
But even if you allow the public there, you don't have to continue a meeting if the public is not abiding by the rules that you've set up for the meeting. You can choose to stop it, and you don't have to continue if it's not what you want.
All I'm trying to do here is to protect everybody.
No, I get it.
Because you can get yourself in so much trouble so easy, just by standing somewhere, and somebody can go by and just go walking by and drop a bomb on you, and then you're accused of, well, I heard this or I heard that, and this guy said that and that guy said it. You guys can laugh all you want.
No,
That's just the way it is.
I understand.
I'm going through it right now, and it's not any fun.
I understand it. I understand the issue.
We came across some interesting things that happened today that we were unaware of that are being
Totally
put out.
unaware.
And he is gone.
I think we use that as a learning experience, and we can work on, we'll work on, if we need to add things to the rules, we can.
Yeah, just, I'm trying to, just don't go, just say, well,
No, I'm not saying.
I want to make sure it's paid attention to.
Yeah, I think that site visits are often treated casually, and I think you have to be careful of that, whether it's a public meeting or not, and whether you're going to be doing any deliberation, whether public's going to be involved, and I think that it just needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
And you
I totally
always,
agree with you.
Because, I mean, Parsons Village Stop and Shop, like, those are, two in the last 15 years that have been, out of the ordinary. I mean, your typical site visit is going
Totally
to be
agree.
us and a few
Totally agree.
people. So I think that we maybe don't even need to change the rules as much as bearing that in mind going forward if we have those.
All right.
What happens when you invite it when the neighbors come on your property and pull a slip and fall to stop the project? Who's responsible for that? The planning board?
see, that's the thing.
Property owner.
Exactly.
For
There's so many
city
different
plan.
avenues.
That's one of the reasons.
I mean, you wouldn't believe it goes on. The more I think back, what went on, what didn't go on, or whatever, and man, the planning board was really out there. Their tails are really dragging the wind on this kind of thing. They can really put a number on you without you even knowing it.
Like other times, the best thing that can be said is nothing. You just tell the person, I can't really speak with you, we're doing something else. Because I've been on many. and
I think
you don't have to speak to that.
If we need to delve into this, we should, but I think for now, we should move on and get these.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to make aware of what's going on.
Well, we can always put it on the,
Yeah, some of the,
On the agenda
no, I'm just
at one time,
trying to
we
bring
can
that up for
discuss
future
it.
consideration. Got nothing better to do some night to talk about it, we may talk about it.
No, I think we need to learn from our experiences.
right,
Got it.
If
Got
there's,
that? Yeah, thank you.
yeah, you got it.
if there's no objections, can we accept the agenda as,
I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
all in favor? Or, you guys
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Minutes, the minutes for February 26th meeting. Those acceptable to everybody?
Okay.
Read the last sentence of the
Oh, the
minutes.
last sentence, yeah.
What do we do?
Consider that, what does it say about attendance? If I read it correctly.
Oh, the vote, the last vote?
4-0 instead of 5-0.
To adjourn? It says 5-0?
Yeah,
Should be
modify
4-0.
4-0. Got it.
So I was in favor of adjournment. Even in absentia, I can still cast.
It's only one little thing,
No,
but
that's
I'm
not.
out of it.
Good catch, I changed
I
it.
would like to note that with that one correction, that we accept the minutes as presented.
There's one more on the under A. I didn't notice it before because I wasn't looking for the 4s and 5s
Oh,
attending.
I just have to catch that.
It's 5. That should read 4 also.
oh.
Where?
The
Two
top
mistakes.
is under call to order, attending. You had it in parentheses 5.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so with those two corrections,
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes with the corrections.
second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstaining.
1 abstention.
Got it.
Remember, that's 4 with 1 abstention. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
Shocking there are more volunteers to clerk around here, right?
Yeah.
Indeed, that's true.
Okay, we have a disclosure of financial interest by a municipal employee to be determined by us. Bill Cannon, William Cannon, is making it known that the planning board, the Parks and Recs Department, under project that's being funded in part by the CPA, is going to do design work for the Parks and Recs Department. And he's a member of the Highway Business District Review Committee, which is, in essence, makes him a city representative or employee, even though it's a volunteer position.
Yeah, I remember I was on the CPA, when we okay, it was like 25 grand, if I remember right.
I have a question on that. Just, even though Bill is a member of the Route 10, he also is doing the design work for Route 10, or helping with that design through Pioneer Valley, from what I understand.
I don't know anything about that. All I know is that he's working with 2 other members of the committee to put together a final report for highway business. I'm not aware of him working
Doing the
with,
design work too. Well, we'll have to
I'm not aware of him.
We'll have to go in with that and see if he is going to do or planning to do.
I don't know what design work PVPC is doing.
As far as I know, he's just working with both Miss O'Donnell and
Right.
the Chair
Correct, with
Blanchard.
Jason.
And they're drawing up the final form for Route 10
Correct.
for us to look at.
Correct.
There isn't any design work going on there that I know.
No, I think he may do some graphics to supplement the report, but he's not doing any design work per se.
Maybe that was it. I thought it was his design work.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I have no problem with this.
None at all.
I think it's up to Parks and Recs to follow proper procurement and make sure that it's done. And other than that, he's disclosed it with the city, so.
Do we know exactly what he's doing design work on?
He's
They're gonna be
doing for the ball fields and the soccer fields.
Okay, thank you.
If I remember correctly, the only reason he got that is because he designed the first street. And see, he was already involved in the first street. We figured we could give him cash to do the final, the whole thing, if I remember correctly.
And it's the Highway Business Review Committee, so, thank you.
If there's no other concerns, entertain a motion to accept this form and
What are we actually determining here? That the financial interest disclosed is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which William Cannon will provide to the city. So,
Is this we have or don't have an opinion, or are we required to stamp this?
we're required to approve this.
we're determining that it's...
Because you oversee the highway business committee,
Yeah, okay.
they're a subcommittee of the planning board, that's why this is before
Or
you.
the appointing authority.
Was there a second to your motion?
Not yet.
I second the motion.
Let everybody have a chance to read this. Read it through. You've already seen this with CPA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Still got
Do you need to sign something on there?
Yeah, I just need to sign it and date it. Old business, continuation of the discussion regarding possible change to the zoning ordinance 10-4 regarding, and it would also be a change if we needed to on the use table 5-1 under home occupations regarding residential kitchens. We had the health agent here last week. Monday, Jessica and I met with the building commissioner and talked about this, trying to see if we couldn't find clarity. The health agent last meeting, when she was here, discussed that to her thinking, that the bakery that was listed in the use table is not what was meant or the same definition as what a home kitchen is. And that the home kitchen is much more focused and limited in scope as to what it does. The building commissioner is willing to do whatever the boards want to, but he thought that there should be a little more clarity in the table itself. So my idea on Monday was, with the board's consent, to try and pursue a two-pronged approach. One was to see if members here, having heard the health agent, she's also working on an opinion to get to us, but to see if we couldn't determine as a board whether or not we think the bakery was intended to mean bakery that encompasses home kitchens or not. And then also to request that the city council look at this and put a clarification under that bakery rather than remove it, but say that it does not include the home kitchen, to make it clearer so that the building inspector feels like there's a real no ambiguity in the definition.
So I watched the meeting from last time, and Jess, maybe you're the best person for this. Is the feeling that a residential kitchen that wasn't a bakery is actually permitted under our current bylaws?
No, we've had applications for residential kitchens and we've been denying them.
Right, so just clearing up the bakery issue doesn't really resolve that, right? I mean, it's...
Well, I mean, it was the interpretation of the building inspector that, and I think it's because there's been past history of somebody who tried to open a bakery, like a full-blown bakery.
Right.
As a home occupation, and so he's a little hesitant. That was my sort of reading, to just allow residential kitchens, although, you know, he was saying, I don't have a problem with somebody baking cookies and wanting to sell them at the farmer's market. So I think he feels more comfortable if it's spelled out for him black and white on what he can and cannot do. So our thought was, well, maybe we could ask them to say bakeries are excluded in terms of the commercial bakery, excluding residential kitchens, so that residential kitchens could be considered, and leave it up to the ZBA as the actual permitting authority for home occupations to determine those impacts of those residential kitchens. And if somebody seemed to be going to be having a lot of traffic issues or traffic impacts in a residential neighborhood, that would be something that the ZBA would consider case by case on each application, rather than just trying to create this broad umbrella regulation about what to do about residential kitchens. I think home occupations are so case by case, no matter what they are. That if somebody just decided, well, I'm not going to sell out of my home, I really just want to sell at the farmer's market, then that would be, you know, an easier thing.
Yeah.
So
I took the health inspector was pretty black and white about how she interpreted that, and now we know from meeting with the building inspector, you know, had a different view. But was the health inspector with you in that meeting with the building inspector?
No, she
no, she wasn't.
Well, having read 10.4 and even the outlines for what it takes to have a home occupation of any kind, there are already like certain regulations that you have to follow. Like you have to have off-street parking for people, and I think there are like pretty specific guidelines for how many people would actually be able to come to your house at a time. And I mean, personally, that's not like the way that I'll be selling, but if that's what you're worried about, then I think that there are already guidelines for it.
That's kind of what worries me about the idea of clarifying the rule. I mean, I love clarifying rules, but there's a big process behind it, and where we left off with the health inspector seemed to indicate that no, actually, in other communities as well, it does not include bakery in that exclusion that we already have, and it's already done.
It depends, community by community. There's some communities that don't list any uses, and again, if you hit the performance standards, and that's really what the thresholds are, we have a way, and again, our ordinance was drafted in the 80s, and it was carried through to the zoning update in 95, that we list very specific things, again, because they seem to be high trip generators at the barber shop, a hair salon, things that would cause traffic impacts in a residential neighborhood. So when the ordinance was originally drafted, those uses were put in there, and they've been carried through. I think, you know, it's, again, I like to leave it up to the permitting authorities to sort of make those especially with something like a home occupation, that case-by-case basis, because, you know, there could be a situation where with a residential kitchen, there might not be any traffic at all, and so.
So is that an argument against clarifying to specifically say bakeries, because you want to give them the ability to say, well, a huge bakeries, no, and small bakeries, yes, and that kind of
The
flexibility?
clarification's not for the ZBA, the clarification's for the building inspector.
And the clarification would be to say that a full-fledged bakery is not the same thing as a residential kitchen. That's the problem. The building inspector, and I really believe that when this use table was crafted, it was they were talking about a full-scale bakery like Sunrise was before they closed.
Right.
And so I think that the point of clarification is just to make it clear the building inspector, because of past history and having somebody come in that wanted to open a bakery in a residential neighborhood, has just automatically, when somebody came in talking about residential kitchens, just automatically said, well, no, the bakery's in here, it's not a permissible use. So I think that's where the problem is.
But that was my question, so, but a residential kitchen that's not a bakery is still not permitted, right?
Right now, as of right now,
Right now,
yes.
right?
And that was what our dialogue with the building inspector was, to see whether he would allow a residential kitchen, understanding that
wasn't a
it's not the
bakery?
same as a bakery, and he was not comfortable. That was, did you read the same?
Said that he would not sign off on it presently, but that he would defer to the ZBA to make to hear it and make the final case. But he said in the long term he would prefer to have the use table changed.
Right.
He would feel more comfortable.
To both allow a residential kitchen and define that a residential kitchen that is baking goods is not a bakery.
It's not classified as a bakery.
Right.
That's what he's looking for.
I mean, the residential kitchen stuff on the state level is really strictly defined. I mean, you
And
can't,
it's under the health code.
Right.
I can't find any zoning ordinance in the state that defines residential
no, I
kitchens.
couldn't either, and I did find like a dozen towns that allow it basically just by filing a form through their health department.
Exactly. That's
And
on
no
the
permitting at all,
Yep.
but I mean, it's not, you couldn't qualify as a residential kitchen and be as big as Sunrise or anything like that. I mean, if you
No,
have to qualify as a residential kitchen, you couldn't be a commercial bakery because it's just,
Right.
it's so tightly restricted.
Right, with the perishable goods.
Right.
Yeah, but a residential business like that is in reverse, it's actually a home business.
Right, but that's what I mean, is so, I mean, you couldn't convert your home into a commercial scale
Commercial, right.
bakery because you wouldn't meet the requirements for the residential kitchen on the state level. So, I mean, I think it's sufficient to say, to permit residential kitchens by permit from the ZBA as a home occupation. And if we have to clarify that and say, you know, this includes, you know, preparing baked goods in your residential kitchen, I think that might add clarity, but I don't think it's.
I think the only thing we have to do is change the use table to where it says bakeries are not permitted. Just put a clarification in parentheses there that bakeries are not, that
In the use
residential
table or in the
kitchen.
actual ordinance section of
In the-
home occupation?
In the home occupation section there.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I was like,
I'm sorry, I
thank you.
misspoke.
Okay.
But just put a line there underneath, clearing up the definition that a
Yeah,
residential kitchen is not considered a bakery.
And a residential kitchen is
Is defined.
permissible.
Right.
And as defined by the state
State law.
health
State,
code.
Right.
Yeah, I think
And
that
leaving
makes
it,
sense.
and leaving it to the ZBA still protects any potential neighbors from adverse effect, because they still have to go through the process with the ZBA before they can open the business. So we're not opening anything that's,
And there's other hoops you have to jump through. You got the health department to deal with, that she said that it's pretty stringent, that she has to go and check that no cats walking across your counter.
then you have to go through a food safe certification.
Yeah,
program.
food safe.
So,
So you're proposing that
My
we change the
proposal
home occupation
is to change the language in the home occupation that underneath bakery it says that a residential kitchen is not a bakery.
Right.
And we're going to CC the ZBA?
And
Yeah, that should go.
and then I was going to seek the city council to change that ordinance so that we can make it. But furthermore, if we're in agreement, I would like to also say that right now, based on what the planning board has has found that it's our opinion that the bakery and that residential uses are not allowed. It's not such a negative thing, but in the table that does not allow bakeries, that the definition meant it there is for a full-fledged bakery and not a residential kitchen. So that depending on an applicant would be risking the ZBA's interpretation, and maybe at the next meeting the ZBA could take it up and discuss it amongst themselves and see if they want to wait until the city council further ratifies that change, or whether they feel strong enough to grant.
But even if we say that a bakery, a residential kitchen bakery isn't a bakery in the table of uses, it's still, the residential kitchen still isn't permissible right now.
No, it is. That's the only thing stopping it, is the building inspector's interpretation.
Yeah.
That a residential kitchen is
That
a
is-
bakery.
It is
It's the
permissible
building
the way it is.
inspector, yes.
But so a
it's-
residential kitchen that's not a bakery is permissible under
Under the health code.
Under the, yeah, I mean, it's all about interpretation. So the building inspector gets it, he understands it. However, he is more comfortable with having it spelled out that residential kitchens are permitted,
Right.
to basically back him up. He said, though, however, if an applicant who wanted to have a residential kitchen right now, wanted to take the risk to move forward and put it before the ZBA and let the ZBA decide, if the planning board was willing to draft a memo to the ZBA before an applicant goes forward, before the zoning change happens, because the zoning change is going to take a couple of months, and if somebody was anxious to try to get a residential kitchen up and running before the zoning change is in place, that there would be some, just, communication between the planning board and the ZBA regarding your opinion. Now, it would be up to the ZBA to decide whether they agree with it or not.
Right.
And so that would be the risk of the applicant, if they wanted to go ahead and do that.
Would it then also be helpful to define what we're saying a bakery is? Because I feel like that term is like, what does
It's
that
the-
mean?
That and the word full-fledged that we
Because
used a
Jackie
lot.
said that there was no definition
Right,
for
she
it.
said that there was.
One on the health code, yeah.
So.
I mean, I found a couple of bakery definitions, but I don't think that they would help you.
She's still
Yeah.
researching, Jackie is still researching that as well. She's
Okay.
trying to come up with more concrete terminology.
Yeah, she
through
said
the
she was
state.
gonna go with-
I spoke with her yesterday.
Okay.
And she is trying. This two-pronged attack here, I would like to at least tonight vote on this, and it may not go forward, because if the ZBA at the next meeting just discusses it amongst themselves and wants to wait for the city council, then, you don't want to waste your money putting applications forward and having it denied, so,
Right.
we need to sort of,
Jessica, do you feel that if we do go forward as a planning board and formulate an amendment to the ZBA, do you think that the ZBA will go forward with it?
I don't know.
Pending?
It's hard to
Do
say.
you know? Well, see, I haven't gotten a feeling of the members of the ZBA and how they would feel about it.
I think it depends on their comfort level with it. I mean, if they're not,
Yeah.
we can't force anybody to do that.
Because
until the
basically,
ordinance is-
we're asking them to go forward with it pending the change with the city
I mean, it's
council.
not asking them to go forward, it's just, I think it's a matter of communicating that this is something that's been brought to your attention, and you could just CC the memo that gets drafted to the city council so that
Yeah.
they're aware that this is happening, because all home occupations fall under their jurisdiction.
Right.
So they should be at least made aware that this is happening. And again, like we said, if an applicant wanted to take the risk and try to go forward as this process is being hashed out, then it's up to the members of the ZBA to make that call and the applicant's risk, so.
And I don't see this as us changing the ordinance to allow
No.
something. I see us just clarifying
Clarifying.
and making it,
Yeah, so we should
perfectly clear.
emphasize that in the memo to the
but-
ZBA, that
but
we're
it's-
just trying to clarify.
But it is their call. It's not,
And there is the scenario that city council doesn't agree and doesn't pass it.
Right.
So what action item would you like to take?
I think we should, depending on how everybody else feels, I'd like to do it in two separate motions. I'd like to make a motion that we request that the city council change the wording in the home occupation restrictions to clarify the definition of bakery, so that it does not include residential kitchen. I think that's,
I'll put that motion forward.
I need a moment, guys.
okay.
We need a second. Hold on.
Where is this wording exactly? It's in the,
In the restricted uses under home occupation.
Do you guys know when the zoning board, is that what it is? ZBA? Where's that?
Zoning Board of Appeals,
They meet
Thursday
on
nights.
Thursday.
Thursday.
This Thursday. But I don't know if they'll discuss it if it's not on their agenda.
Okay.
we're on motions to request of the city council to clarify the wording of bakery to not include residential kitchens in the restricted uses under home occupation. Chet seconds.
No, Chet made
I made the motion and
Okay.
a second.
I'll second.
Chet motions and just
just a second. This one's yours,
Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, if, on the second matter, whether or not we want to make any recommendation that, that the planning board feels that this is a clarification, and that what was intended was a bakery and not a residential kitchen. If people are comfortable with that, just making a resolution stating that so that we can forward that to the ZBA for their consideration. If you're not, comfortable with it, we can, you don't have to move forward with that.
I'm happy to make that statement. I mean, I think that it's I think it's a rational interpretation to look at it and see that where they have bakery listed in the table of uses there, that they're imagining a standalone commercial establishment, and that residential kitchen, and to the extent that a bakery is a residential kitchen, that's not within the definition of bakery in that section. I think that makes sense.
I'll second.
Can I have your resolution stated clearly?
That the planning board opinion is that the word bakery in the prohibited table of home occupations refers to commercial bakery and not a residential kitchen.
Well, it's also in the table of uses, right, where it's got the zones where you need it by permit or by right.
Is this resolution going anywhere? I'm sorry.
To the ZBA.
We're going to forward it to the ZBA.
Resolution for the ZBA. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
I don't have my bylaws with me.
You should always have your bylaws with you. You should carry them with you everywhere you go.
I believe bakeries appears in that table 5.1 or whatever.
My God.
I'm looking for it.
So it's a resolution for the ZBA stating that the planning board feels that the word bakery in the prohibited table of home occupations refers to commercial bakery and not a residential kitchen.
Right.
I actually don't see it.
I thought I saw one today when I was looking at it.
Business discount.
I'm going to read over your shoulder.
Go ahead.
I don't remember.
Bakery, there it
Got
is.
yeah.
So,
With the catch-all
right,
and everything else.
Right, and so it's got, I mean, all the residentials, you can't do it at all under
Right.
there, right? So we'd have to clarify that, what is that, number 15?
15.
And table 5.1, where they also use the term bakery.
So we're saying, and the use of the word bakery in table 5-1.
Oh, I can't wait till we update our definition section.
Table 5-1.
It's gonna make my life
So when you refer to, if you could just put that, when you talk about the,
That's gonna be a long thing too.
home
Trying to
occupation is
get the
not permitted.
definitions.
So
Where it
prohibited
should
table
be.
of home occupations and
And then just say and, table
You can go cuckoo.
-1.
Or section.
Doing bakeries doesn't mean blah, blah, blah.
Or legal.
I went through some of them. You can take it, yes, and you can say no.
The best is when there's the same definition, or the same item defined differently
Nice.
and listed in two different places,
Yeah.
like lot, comma, corner, or corner
Corner
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
Corner lot, right, that.
And it's in there twice with two different separate definitions.
There's a couple of diagrams that are a little crazy, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so is there,
I moved.
I
you
second.
moved, Chet seconded. Any more discussion?
Jesse and I go back and forth. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
It's just very unfortunate to have to go through it, because, we meet twice a month, ZBA meeting, I think meets, what,
Once a month, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
council
Yes.
meeting, who knows, I'm not sure when they meet, so to try to get all this organized and then try to come up with an answer and everything else.
It takes time, and I understand that, and I just hope that, I think that everyone in Easthampton is psyched about getting small businesses started, and so I just am gonna have
It's just too
faith in
bad
that.
it takes so long,
Yeah, but that's part of the process, so it's okay.
Yeah. Glad that you understand.
Extremely frustrating.
Is there anything else before the board?
No, I guess I'll just report on one item, that Harry has graciously volunteered to sit on an open space committee. We're updating our open space and recreation plan. And
Just keep
he's
beating me.
representing the planning board, the CPA, and the historic commission. So we have our first meeting in March, and the plan will be updated by July.
What exactly is Chet on now? He said somebody's on some kind of regional recreational open space thing, what's that all about?
You're on BayPAC, right?
Baypack,
Which
yeah.
is the
And
nonprofit for protection
I
of
got a
our
note
communities.
from Baypack that we got there's a, oh God, where would it go?
I wanted to ask you, is
There was a regional open space and green
Yes.
meeting that's part of Baypack.
Sure.
They're having that.
Yep,
so-
that's part of the Sustainable Knowledge Quarter.
Right, so I've been going to that, so I'll take,
that meeting we're having on the
27th.
27th, it has to be posted, right?
I posted it already.
Okay.
All set.
I see that right. That's the first thing I noticed right in there. I'm going, that better be posted. I don't want to have go
I
through
know, I
another Route
posted
10.
it, I posted with Barbara last night.
Okay.
And then I'll see you all at the CPTC conference, except
On
for
Saturday,
Jesse.
right?
yes, Miss Jessica.
Okay, thank you.
I'll pick you all up at 7 a.m. here in the parking lot.
We're using your blazer?
Unless you want
We're all gonna get in the trunk.
Have we posted a notice that there's gonna be an open meeting and
Yeah.
Jim's
There's
coming?
gonna be an open meeting conducted from the parking lot to Holy Cross.
to stream it.
Talk about phone stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
don't
it
talk
something
about
you said?
work.
I'll tell you what, by Saturday, it should really be good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Talk
I don't wanna
about
see
Harry's new
this thing.
motorcycle.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a
Won't be
motion
by
to adjourn.
motorcycles.
I second.
Jim?
All in
I
favor?
don't sit next to you.
Aye.
All right.
8 seats. Aye.
It kind of,
Opposed?
none. Or at least not for me.